Do you really think that you're helping these children by releasing them to labor traffickers and, yes, sex traffickers? 85,000 children whom you have no contact with, and your answer is, we gave them a presentation before we turned them over to these people who are exploiting them on a scale not seen in this country for 100 years, a century. A century. It's a disgrace in the United States of America.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to Signal 76, your beacon of truth in these dark times facing our great nation. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into what might be the most horrifying government failure of our generation. We're talking about the systematic abandonment and trafficking of children by the very federal agency that's supposed to protect them. This isn't just bureaucratic incompetence, folks. This is criminal negligence on a scale that would make the cartels jealous. Before we get into this devastating expose, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and most importantly, watch this entire video until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you view this administration's complete and utter failure to protect the most vulnerable among us. We're fighting for the soul of America here, and every patriot needs to understand exactly what's happening to these children.
Housekeepers, they are working overnight shifts at plants where they are not paid, they are not going to school, they are not cared for, they are not giving meals, almost all of it illegally. Are you aware of that? That's a yes or no.
Yes.
Do the Know Your Rights presentation help them in those situations?
Senator, ORR.
That's a yes or no, I think.
Do
you really think that you're helping these children by releasing them to labor traffickers and, yes, sex traffickers? 85,000 children whom you have no contact with, and your answer is, we gave them a presentation before we turned them over to these people who are exploiting them on a scale not seen in this country for 100 years, a century. A century. It's a disgrace in the United States of America. Let me ask you this. You did an audit, I noticed, where you gave yourself a clean bill of health. So just tell me this. Do you require sponsors to document their relationship with the child?
Senator, we have a thorough vetting process.
Do you require sponsors to document their relationship with the child?
Yes, we go through.
No, you do not. You do not. Have you read the Senate's Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations reports on your office? There was one in 2016, there was one in 2018, there was one in 2020, there was one in 2022. Spanning administrations, what they found is you do not require sponsors to document their relationship with the child. You release them anyway. What about background checks? Do you require background checks on all adults in the household?
In cases where the child is being released to their parents, we do not require background checks. But Senator, I would
do you require background checks on all adults in the household in any case?
Yes, in some cases we do.
What percentage of cases do you do background checks on the adults in the household?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Do you do home visits in all cases? You can actually see where these children are being released, whose care you're putting them in?
We do not do home visits in all cases. Senator, I'd really like the opportunity to talk about what we are doing.
I know what you're doing, and it's incredibly and totally inadequate. And we can read about it in the New York Times. Since you say you've read it, let's talk a little bit about that New York Times report, if we could. Here's a quote from the April 17th installment. Again and again, veteran government staffers and outside contractors told HHS, including reports that reached the secretary, that children appeared to be at risk. Did you warn the secretary that children were at risk?
Senator, I'm in regular contact with the secretary.
Did you warn him that children were at risk?
Safety and well-being of children is our top priority.
Did you warn him that children were at risk?
I'm not going to get into the conversations I've had.
You're here and you're under oath, and this is an oversight hearing, and we need to know what you're doing because you're manifestly not doing your job. Did you warn him that children were at risk? Do you believe that children are at risk? Let's start with that.
Yes.
Okay, did you warn the secretary?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics of my conversation, but I would like the opportunity
Why wouldn't you warn the secretary that children were at risk?
I would like the opportunity to talk about what we
Let's look at what the secretary said to you. The other one, James. Yeah, that one. At least 5 HHS staff members said they were pushed out after raising concerns about child safety. Mr. Becerra, the secretary, told the ORR director, that's you, right, that if she could not increase the number of discharges, he would find someone who could. And then he went on to say that if Henry Ford had run his plants like this, he would never have become famous and rich. This is not the way you do an assembly line. Get the kids out, run them through, get them out to those sponsors, those traffickers. Why didn't you resign when he said this? Do you think that this is morally acceptable?
Senator, I joined ORR in September of 2022. I believe that was reported prior to my arrival, but I cannot speak.
This is from an article this year.
I can't speak to what the secretary.
Do you think that this is acceptable to run ORR like an assembly line and to release these children to traffickers?
I can assure you we do not run ORR like an assembly line. The safety and well-being of children is our top concern, and by
Plainly
statute,
not. Plainly, it is not your top concern because you have managed to lose 85,000 of them, and the Times knows where they are, or 2/3 of them, and they're with labor traffickers. It's unbelievable. Let me just ask you this. How many kids right now, of the 430,000 approximately, unaccompanied children have crossed the border under this administration? It's an astounding number. How many are you in regular contact with right now?
Senator, we have a number of different providers across the country who.
But what's the
provide
number? What's the
different-
number? How many of you are you in? You said child welfare is your top concern. What's the number?
I don't have the specific number.
How can you not know? Why
Because-
would you come to this hearing and not know?
Respectfully, if you would like us to provide comprehensive case management to children after they're released from our care, so we can report.
Respectfully, I would like you to do your job and not release children to human traffickers. Respectfully, that's what I would like. I'd like you not facilitate the largest child trafficking ring in American history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ossoff.
Thank you, Mr.
What we witnessed in that congressional hearing wasn't just another government official being questioned. What we saw was the complete exposure of a child trafficking operation being run directly out of the Department of Health and Human Services under the Biden administration. Let that sink in, patriots. The same government that lectures us about child safety, that wants to control every aspect of our lives in the name of protecting children, has facilitated the largest child trafficking ring in American history. 85,000 children, patriots. 85,000 innocent souls who came to this country seeking safety. And this administration handed them over to criminals like they were processing inventory at a warehouse. The HHS official, Robin Dunn Marcos, sat there in that hearing room and admitted, under oath, that they have no idea where these children are. None. Zero contact with 85,000 children who were supposed to be under federal protection. But here's what really makes my blood boil. When confronted with reports from the New York Times, yes, even the liberal New York Times couldn't ignore this catastrophe, detailing children working in dangerous conditions, operating heavy machinery, working overnight shifts without pay, being denied education, being denied proper meals. This bureaucrat's response was essentially, well, we gave them a presentation before we handed them over to their exploiters. A presentation, patriots. A Know Your Rights presentation. As if a PowerPoint slide is going to protect a 10-year-old from being forced to work construction or a 12-year-old from being trafficked for sex. This is the level of delusion and incompetence we're dealing with in the Biden administration. They think bureaucratic paperwork is a substitute for actually protecting children. Let's talk about the vetting process, or should I say, the complete absence of one. This official admitted under oath that they don't require sponsors to document their relationship with the children. They don't conduct background checks on all adults in households where these children are being placed. They don't do home visits to verify the living conditions. They don't maintain contact with the children after placement. This isn't a child welfare system, patriots. This is a child distribution network for human traffickers. The senator grilling this official, Senator Josh Hawley, was absolutely right to be outraged. This isn't about politics. This isn't about left versus right. This is about basic human decency and the fundamental responsibility of government to protect children. When Senator Hawley pointed out that children are scrubbing dishes, harvesting coffee, working as housekeepers, working overnight shifts where they're not paid, not going to school, not being cared for, not being given proper meals, almost all of it illegal, this official could only give weak, evasive answers. But here's where it gets even more sinister, patriots. Multiple HHS staff members who tried to raise concerns about child safety were pushed out, fired, silenced. The Biden administration's response to whistleblowers trying to protect children was to eliminate them. And then, Secretary Becerra, the man at the top of HHS, told his staff that if they couldn't increase the number of discharges, he'd find someone who could. He compared child welfare to Henry Ford's assembly line, saying Ford never would have become famous and rich if he'd run his plants like HHS was running child protection. An assembly line, patriots. That's how this administration views child welfare. Get them in, process them quickly, and get them out. No questions asked. No follow-up required. No responsibility accepted. Just move the product along the conveyor belt, even if that product is a vulnerable child and the destination is a trafficking operation. This systematic failure didn't happen overnight, and it's not limited to one administration, though it has reached unprecedented levels under Biden. The Senate's Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations has been documenting these failures since 2016, with reports in 2018, 2020, and 2022. Each report found the same fundamental problems: inadequate vetting, lack of follow-up, insufficient protection measures. Yet nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. What we're seeing here is the complete breakdown of federal child protection services, and it's happening while this administration floods our border with unaccompanied minors. Over 430,000 unaccompanied children have crossed our border under this administration. That's nearly 500,000 children, and the federal agency responsible for their welfare can't tell you how many they're in regular contact with. They simply don't know. This is what happens when ideology trumps common sense, when political correctness becomes more important than child safety, when virtue signaling replaces actual virtue. The Biden administration's open border policies created this crisis, and their incompetent bureaucracy has turned it into a human trafficking bonanza. But here's what really infuriates me as a patriot who believes in American values, who believes that protecting children is our most sacred duty. This official sat there, under oath, and refused to answer direct questions about whether she warned the secretary that children were at risk. She admitted children are at risk, but she wouldn't say whether she told her boss about it. That's not just bureaucratic cowardice, patriots. That's complicity in child endangerment. The excuse-making, the deflection, the refusal to take responsibility, it's everything that's wrong with our federal bureaucracy. These people collect taxpayer salaries to protect children, and when they catastrophically fail at that basic mission, they hide behind procedure and protocol instead of admitting their failures and fixing them. Think about what this means for our country, patriots. We have federal agencies that are either so incompetent they can't track 85,000 children or so corrupt they're deliberately facilitating child trafficking. Either scenario is unacceptable in the United States of America. Either scenario demands immediate action, criminal investigation, and complete reform of these agencies. This isn't just about immigration policy, though that's certainly part of it. This is about the fundamental competence and moral authority of our federal government. If they can't protect children, if they can't prevent the largest child trafficking operation in American history, what exactly can they do? What justifies their existence? What justifies our tax dollars funding their salaries? The mainstream media has largely ignored this story, patriots. They're too busy pushing their agenda to care about 85,000 missing children. But we can't ignore it. We can't let this slide. These are children we're talking about. Innocent kids who came to America hoping for safety and instead found themselves handed over to criminals by their own government. Every American, regardless of political affiliation, should be demanding answers. Every member of Congress should be demanding investigations. Every taxpayer should be demanding accountability. This is our government, funded by our tax dollars, and they're facilitating child trafficking on an industrial scale. The solution isn't more bureaucracy, patriots. It's not more presentations or more paperwork. The solution is complete accountability, criminal prosecution where appropriate, and fundamental reform of how we handle unaccompanied minors. We need mandatory background checks for all adults and sponsor households. We need home visits for every placement. We need regular follow-up contact with every child. We need to treat child welfare like the life and death issue it is, not like a government processing center. We also need to secure our border, patriots. This crisis is directly connected to the Biden administration's open border policies that have encouraged hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors to make dangerous journeys to our country. When you incentivize illegal border crossing by minors, when you advertise that children will be quickly processed and released, you create exactly the conditions that human traffickers exploit. But most importantly, we need Americans who care more about protecting children than protecting political narratives. We need patriots who will demand better from their government, who will vote for leaders who prioritize child safety over political correctness, who will support policies that actually protect vulnerable kids instead of just making bureaucrats feel good about themselves. This hearing should be a wake-up call for every American patriot. Our government is failing in its most basic duty to protect children, and the consequences are devastating. 85,000 children are missing from federal custody, many of them in the hands of traffickers and exploiters, and the Biden administration's response is to give presentations and make excuses. We cannot let this stand, patriots. We cannot accept this level of failure and incompetence from our government. These children deserve better. America deserves better. Our values demand better. And it's up to us to make sure they get it through our votes, our voices, and our unwavering commitment to protecting the most vulnerable among us. That's why channels like Signal 76 exist, patriots, to cut through the noise, to expose the truth, and to hold our government accountable when they fail us. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. Share this video with everyone you know, and keep fighting for the America our children deserve. Until next time, stay strong, stay patriotic, and never stop demanding the truth.